All right, guys, so the time finally has arrived. We're going to show you our new project for the faction. The car in front of you is obviously a Nissan R34. This is a GTV, not as common as like a GTT and obviously not like a GTR. GTVs are essentially a non-turbo RB25. This one's a Neo. This is a 2001 example. This is still obviously in Japan. It is not legal as of time of filming to bring into the United States yet. We've still got about a year or so, which is why we've come to Japan for a little over a week to try and figure out how we can get this car registered. Now, there are places like Top Rank and a few others that you can go and essentially rent your car to drive it around Japan before it becomes legal. We've been working with a great shop called Apex Moto. They've been storing it for us in the meantime while we kind of figure out what we want to do with the car still in Japan. But we've got a couple of different ideas that we'll go into here down the road. But we'll kind of cover what the car is right now. Again, the RB25, a non-turbo Neo engine. This one has been modified like a lot of JDM cars still present in the country. This is a manual car from the factory. So this was a 5-speed manual, Nissan 5-speed manual. And this, again, completely rear-wheel drive setup. So I don't recall which gearing ratio it is. It's probably like a 333 or a 350 rear end. It's sitting on some Nismo LMGT4 wheels in gloss black, and then it does have some body kits on it. So the big thing is, compared to like a normal GTV and some of the other aesthetics, it has a GTR front and rear clip, as well as the side rocker panels are GTR styled as well. There's some kind of variants in it. I noticed some damage when I was just inspecting it a little while ago on the rear. That's probably been there for a while, but this is an original black car. It hasn't been resprayed except for the additional parts. It's got some hood clips on it as well. Interior is in almost immaculate condition, other than some wear on the steering wheel that you would expect in the driver's seat. It's really in perfect condition.
Before we dive into the specifics of all the little details and issues that you're seeing with it, how are you feeling? I mean, we flew out all the way out here for this car right here, and we're here now. We have it in front of us. You're not just looking at pictures.
Right.
I know you did. You had Brett go out and take a look beforehand, but now it's here in front of you. What are you thinking? How are you feeling?
Well, it's bittersweet. I'll say that, right? The condition of the car is amazing, and I'm glad I was able to pick it up especially for the price that we got it for. And for, kind of a unmolested vehicle as this one stands right now, I think it's really a pretty good deal, especially when you compare to the ones that are already back in the States. So again, as time of filming, there's some late 1998 R34s and early 1999 R34s that you can get. The prices right now are ridiculous for those. So you really kind of have to find an example here.
Right.
But it's like I said, it's in great condition, but it's bittersweet because we still can't register it here. Registering in the country of Japan is a lot more complicated than other countries in the world, so it's a little bit more complicated. But still, I'm quite pleased with the condition of the vehicle, and we might be able to get it to a track once we can get it registered and so forth. We're very close to Fuji Speedway and a couple of the other drift tracks and so forth. And being a rear-wheel drive car, it kind of gives a good opportunity to be able to go and race this while it's still in the country. So again, 2026 is the period when it's going to turn 25 years old, early 2026. So we've got a little while that we can do some modifications to this and just kind of figure out exactly what we want to do. A little over a year to kind of maybe do some mods on this if we can, upgrade parts before it gets on the boat to go to the United States, and then race it, whatever we can once it's registered, and potentially drive around the country. So that's kind of been our game plan once we picked up this car. But really, sky's the limit, and it's really just how much we want to delve into this project and how much you guys are interested in it while it's still in Japan rather than the United States. As in terms of getting it back to the United States, I've basically got unlimited plans for it. We're pretty much considering taking the RB25 Neo out and potentially engine swapping it. I'm going to kind of save that detail for a later time on what we're going to put in place of that. It's probably going to be different than what you guys think. But regardless, we'll probably do an engine swap.
Comment down below what you think that Jared's thinking. What he's always scheming with what would be interesting.
You've seen a lot of our other builds, so you might have some theories. Yeah. But we've got a kind of a destined plan for this engine. For this engine that's in there, that may go to another project. But for the engine that will take its place, we've kind of got a destined plan. So
yeah, I'm curious to see what people are thinking, and even if it's not what you think Jared will be doing, what would you do to this car? I mean, it's not a GTR. So
it's kind of sky's the limit, right? It's not that kind of purist fashion, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get this. So I didn't really want to cut up a GTR. That being said, I do plan to try and make this car all-wheel drive. We already have most of the parts to make this car all-wheel drive. For those that are aware, GTTs and GTVs are just rear-wheel drive. There was another version of a lower trim called a GT4. In the previous years, it was called like a GT4S.
And that's what you were originally looking for.
That's what I was originally looking for. Those examples, by this point in time, have already really been sold off. They're very popular in Australia and other parts of the world that were already able to have the R34 platform. But yeah, so making the switches is not very difficult on a R34 chassis. There's a few things you got to do to the front, and obviously have an all-wheel drive system for that. And then the biggest one is notching the center tunnel. So we're going to be going into detail. So we'll release now that this will become an all-wheel drive car. But what engine plant we're putting into it, we're kind of keeping behind closed doors right now. But yeah, I think Joe, you want to go around the car a little bit and talk about some of the different parts?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I'll say for me, first impressions, this thing is awesome. Like, the wheels are super clean. Overall, I think the paint condition looks pretty fair. You can kind of see the weaves from the fiberglass. Like you said, the previous owner put on some aftermarket stuff. The bumper, the styling, they're trying to go for that GTR look. It's up badged. The guy storing it, he taped over the GTR badges before he drove it down to the shop for us to check out, because he said I could not drive around in a non-GTR with the GTR badge. So, which is fair. I mean, especially around here, you just don't want to do that. So, I think that, yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done on the car, but overall, it's super clean. I think that I don't know, for me, it looks great. I'm definitely surprised by the quality of the interior. Definitely a couple little spots, like the bolstering on the driver's seat and the steering wheel. But besides that, it looks very immaculate. I'm happy with it. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and walk around the car, and I'm just gonna follow you around and let's review that. All right, Jared, let's walk around and take a look. Tell me what you're seeing.
So again, the GTT, it's not as wide of a front fender, so these are just the stock fenders. Again, this hood is definitely aftermarket. It's got some, looks like some fiberglass style poly hood pins on it. So we do have plans to probably replace this hood. It's in great condition and was body matched to the car perfectly. Down here again, we have LMGT4s. So these are kind of like the premier Nissan wheels. They started to remanufacture these a couple of years ago from the originals that were made back in the 90s for the GTRs and the high performance Nissan cars, but really swell looking wheels. So on the GTTs, GTVs, like this example, it's got 2-piston front calipers, and I'm going to guess this is probably about 11.5 inch. I forget exactly the size of the front rotor. Moving on to the front clip, this is a GTR essentially. There's a couple of different versions of body for these, like the S-Tune and Z-Tune. This one is kind of a modification play on that. There's been so many different bumpers that have been made, but if you look at some of the intricacies of the fog lights and the different way that like the front diffuser and this out of the other plays in, where the license plate is, if it has one, stuff like that. Again, this has been unfortunately up-badged to a GTR by the previous owner, so we'll be changing that. But the general aesthetic fits, and the big part is having this upper lip that seals into the hood rather than the hood extending over like you'd normally see on a GTT or a GT-V. That's really what separates the aesthetics on the front. Headlights, again, the headlights are a little bit different. These have been faded a little bit, kind of yellowed. We can fix those up. Otherwise, we'll probably modify these to an extent, put in some additional CCFLs or halos or something like that. Another thing on the front, right, so the color and then the badging on the GTTs is very different from the GTR. So usually this is a different color like amber on a GTR, and then there's no GT badge on the side. Let's go ahead and take a look on the inside. So rocker panel, again, that's an addition compared to what they would be. So usually it's a multi-piece section for a GTT. This is essentially a very stock interior for the GT-V, GTT cars. You know, few small changes they added. Usually electronics, the single DIN or double DIN are replaced, which is definitely the case here. This one, since it's not a turbo, does not have any center cluster pod. Again, we're going to be changing a lot of those interiors as well. So on the back, again, the quarter panels on the GTR are much wider than they are in the GTT. It's about 1.5 inches or so. So these, you can see, this section is going to be a lot further out on a GTR, and they do make appliques that go over this section of the quarter panel. The same applies to the rear of the tail lights. This section, this cover for the rear tail lights comes out. We might go with a little bit different rear tail light sections here as well. Finally, on the rear clip, the rear bumper is a slight differentiation. Again, just like the front clip. Not a GTR style, not a GTT style. I'd say it's closer to a GTT than a GTR. The rear diffuser kind of doesn't exist on this one, at least the rear fins do. And then obviously one large single exhaust. In terms of the bottom of the car, obviously we can't show you the bottom of the car, but this example still has the HICUS, which is the rear steering module. And at least upon our inspection, the rear subframe has come out probably for some kind of work for JCI or something like that. And has been repainted. So when we finally get it back to the States, or even here potentially on the lift, and look up underneath the car, we should be able to see what kind of condition those different parts and those wear items for the subframe are. But otherwise, amazing condition, a very small amount of rust. I'll show you kind of the example of the piece that we found on the rear. Small section that we'll fix once we get it back to the States. Lastly, we've got the kind of examples from a GTR style rear wing. Again, rear wings are very different for each one of the models, and even for the GTRs in the aftermarket, the spoilers can get ridiculous. So open up the driver's door. We still got a lot of the original Japanese prints and information stickers. If I hadn't mentioned, again, there's differences on the interior sections, different colors, different material choices. We'll probably end up going with some differences in the seats and in the back seats and all that. And then on the steering wheel as well, we'll definitely be changing up the steering wheel, potentially doing the cluster swap that's very common to go to the higher kilometer per hour markings on that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, different center console, since we haven't said, but clearly this is going to have more power in the future, being an all-wheel drive build. So this is a Neo RB25. They did a lot of upgrades on the head on the RB25 Neos. This example, since it's a GTV, that's the big difference between the GTT and the GTV, is the lack of a turbo, single turbo that's on the GTV compared to the GTT. So again, you can kind of spot all those differences because the naturally aspirated air box set up here. Otherwise, we've got a very simple strut tower brace, and everything in here is very, I'd say, original, very good condition. There's not a lot of cracking or anything like that for a car that's now 23 years old or so, about 24 years old. So really excited to kind of delve into it, add some upgrades. Again, comparisons to the GTR, radiator, some of the front clip parts, all of those are a little bit different for the modifications that they do for the RB26 that would be in that higher trim car. Again, for ours, we're going to actually be doing a lot different engine plant in this. So, you know, you guys pretty much are going to have to stay tuned to see what happens with this original RB25, what project we put it in, and then what engine and powertrain setup we actually put into place of it. So that kind of ends the overview of the car that we've been able to. Again, quite lucky to be able to get it down here today to show you guys. Really excited to take a look at it, and hopefully you guys are excited as well to see this car kind of transform, coming straight from Japan all the way back to our shop. We're so far from now, and really make this into an exceptional example, a car that hopefully not many people have seen or understand. And you know, there are some examples on YouTube turning these into the Fast and Furious car or making something ridiculous out of it. Almost all of those still rely on a rear-wheel drive setup because of the difficulty finding a lot of the all-wheel drive parts, and then obviously the RB26s that would come in the GTRs are very sought after and cost a lot. So we're going to try and deviate around some of that. We already have a lot of the all-wheel drive parts, and we've got a lot of plans for the engine. So we really hope you guys have liked this video, kind of understand where we're getting at with this build. We're going to have many more, I think, when we get out to Japan again, maybe more cars that we'll try and find to bring back to the States, and see what we can do for, you know, driving this here, racing it around, doing some modifications. All right, guys, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any feedback on what we should do, what are your thoughts, or where you think we're going this car, let us know. We'd love to hear about it, and any other cars that we should check out while we're here in Japan, or the next time, because again, we hope to come back. So, all right, guys, we'll catch you later.